You open this door with the key of reason. Beyond it is another dimension. A dimension of truth. A dimension of freedom. A dimension of joy. You're moving into the land of both the ideal and the real, of the possible and the actual. You've just crossed over into the Capitalist Corner.
Where reason meets reality, welcome to the Capitalist Corner.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Capitalist Corner. I'm your host, Mark Pellegrino, and also the chairman of the American Capitalist Party, along with my co-host and vice chair of the American Capitalist Party, Michael Leibowitz. Mike, it's been a long time. How you been?
I'm doing well. We've been rocking and rolling over here. Persephone and I are doing everyday ethics every day. She's been just an absolute amazing addition to the show. It's awesome. I'm so happy she's there.
Of course, speaking of all that, what's going on with the Rational Egoist, Everyday Ethics?
Everyday Ethics is awesome with Persephone and Rational Egoist. Right now, we've got a great episode with Jim Valiant, continuing our series of using objectivism, the philosophy of Ayn Rand, the book, as a means for self-improvement. This week, we covered values. Very, very good episode. Great discussion. And, of course, we got the Self-Made Soul that we're just killing it on the weekends. That's awesome.
I love that. A lot of tools for people, a lot of philosophical tools for them to help get their life in order and to be the most productive and thriving human being they can be. I love that. That's awesome. Guys, that means you got to like and subscribe to this channel and spread it across social media platforms. Do that on YouTube and spread it across social media platforms, because we think this message of rugged individualism and reason, individual rights, needs to get out there in the world. It's not popular, believe it or not. Michael, what's popular is collectivism. What's popular
yes, it is
tribalism, and we are the voice crying in the wilderness that we hope we become a majority at some point. And if you want to live a happy life, you want to live in a beneficent society, we think these are the ideas that you pursue to do that. But we're not going to force you. No, we won't. We don't believe in that. You have to adopt them on your own. You have to see that they are rational and good for you to take them on. All right, man, we got a lot going on here today. We got self-created reality. I love that. Youth and social media, the SAVE Act, and more coming up, folks. And my cat is going insane.
Why won't this let me share the live? I'm a little confused here.
Yeah, it did something weird to me as well. I think I shared it, but it was a little unclear.
Why won't this let me share the live?
There you go.
I'm confused here.
Yeah, it did something weird to me as well. I shared it, but it was.
That's sick.
That's crazy.
There you go.
And now I got doubling up. All right.
Okay, yeah. So turn that volume off so we can get to this thing.
It's off, dude.
Yes, you sent me something from the Free Press that I thought was very interesting, and it sparked a lot of thought. I mean, you sent articles.
Have you noticed? I just want to tell you. Do you understand what's happening?
What do you mean?
I've changed the format to where we're only going to discuss three issues, 2 or 3 issues a day. And I just sent you an abundance of articles dealing with those 3. And I linked, all of them are linked. We got $5 from Jenna Kleem. Thank you, Jenna.
Thank you, Jenna. You're always a great supporter. We love you. Keep it up. Thank you so much. So the Free Press says a high-profile social media addiction trial began yesterday in California State Court, testing whether YouTube and Instagram can be held responsible for causing depression and suicidal ideation. The plaintiff, a 20-year-old woman identified by her initials KGM, alleges the apps addicted her at a young age and contributed to severe mental anguish. I have so many problems with this, Michael.
Thank you, Stephen Katz, for the $2 super sticker.
Thank you, buddy.
I do as well. And I just... These things get complicated when corporations lie, because if they are committing fraud, then that's a problem. So if they, for instance, as in the case of the cigarette companies, know that tobacco is addicting and they go in public and say, no, it's not, but then you find transcripts where they acknowledge it is, that's fraud. So if it's the case that you have social media companies in their personal communications saying, yes, this stuff is addicting. Yes, it's bad for kids. We're going to do it anyway. And then they publicly say, no, they're committing fraud. But if they don't do that, and I don't know that they are, it's not clear from either of the articles that we read here. If they're not doing that, then parents are the ones responsible for their kids. Also, it's very vague when someone says, "Oh, I was harmed by this. I had suicidal ideation," because you don't know, would they have had those first of all, we don't know that they're actually having those issues. They're claiming them. But secondly, what we don't know is if there was a causal relationship. It could very well be that the issue is that they're screwed up to begin with, and that's why they end up addicted.
Yeah, I have issues with the whole addiction thing. I know popular culture is like addiction is a disease. It's something out of your control. And in the 12 steps program, they talk about, you relinquish your control over alcohol because you have no will over alcohol. That's the entire approach to healing yourself from addiction in the popular society. But I've never really gotten on board with that, Michael, because I can't help but think that even if these companies are devising algorithms that will tend to hook you a little bit, get you into that dopamine fix or whatever it is. Even if the cigarette companies are putting more chemicals in their cigarettes that physically bind you to the chemicals a little bit more and make giving it up uncomfortable, that doesn't mean that you lose your will. You still have your free will. You can still understand that what you're doing is not healthy for you or good for you. You just have to be willing to pay the price to overcome the problem that you have. Now, from my perspective, Michael, addiction is usually something that one does to evade the facts of reality. This is something that they put in place of the facts of reality, a feeling that they replace the facts of reality with. And it's very uncomfortable to separate yourself from that and say, I no longer want to be a slave to this particular product or this website. I want to be my own person. You're going to have to deal with a great deal of uncomfortability, but you have free will in all cases. So, yes, maybe these people can be taken to the mat legally for committing fraud because they're claiming not to do stuff that they are doing. But that's not what this woman is. That's not her claim.
Okay, I have a big surprise of something that I want to discuss that I didn't tell you about because I didn't know I was going to be able to pull this off, but I am, and I want to switch the topic, and we'll come back to this in a minute.
Okay.
All right, my friend Carlos is now in the studio. He's on here. He's on the stage. Carlos, what's happening?
What's up, man?
What's going on? What's going on?
All right, so I don't know, Mark, if you're aware of this, but conservative media, Glenn Beck, I guess the New York Post, the Daily Mail, and many, many more, all these influencers are all over social media claiming that when Bad Bunny sang at the Super Bowl, he sang explicit lyrics. I'm not going to repeat them here, but nevertheless, they're very explicit. In looking into this a little bit, it appeared to me that what was going on is that the original songs do have explicit lyrics, but he did not perform those at the Super Bowl. I did a bunch of searching, and most of the sources said, no, it's not. He didn't sing those. But Grok said, yes, it did, because Grok is getting the information from the sources that I just mentioned. Sure. So what I did is I reached out to the closest person to me that I know speaks fluent Spanish and does so very well, and asked him to listen to it so that he could come on and tell us if this is accurate. So, Carlos, did Bad Bunny sing the explicit lyrics at the Super Bowl? And if not, what is going on?
Not at all. It's very inaccurate that he said anything explicit at all. The songs that he sang do hold explicit lyrics, but he did not mention any of them. If you listen closely, even though you don't understand Spanish, you can hear where it kind of does the blurring, kind of the censorship sound that you get. He blocks it off. He doesn't say anything. That's not to say that an argument cannot be made about sexualizing or objectifying women and contributing to the culture that has to do with any of that, because some of those songs do portray that. But he did not at all say anything explicit, nothing at all close to the lyrics that you sent me just now through the text messages. I'm not only a Spanish fluent speaker, but I'm also very familiar with many of his songs, know them by memory. So I was looking specifically for those parts where I knew he would say, vulgar things, and he did not at all. Not even close.
Wow.
Mark, you have anything you want to ask?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I just sort of stumbled into this controversy. I think I read just before the halftime show, actually, that Trump was going to be boycotting it, and they were going to have a separate thing from Turning Point USA, and apparently 2.3 or so million people actually tuned into that halftime show. They really seemed to make it a racial thing, to be honest with you. It seemed to be coming from that racial white nationalistic nonsense. So I actually tuned into Bad Bunny, not even knowing who he is. He's the biggest artist on the planet right now, but I don't really know his work. And I actually found the show really interesting and fun. So I didn't understand anything he was saying, but it didn't matter to me in the end. It was a show that was fun. The music was interesting, and I enjoyed it. So I mean, it looks like they're trying to polarize Americans again, along racial lines.
Carlos, what the impression that I got, right, was that it was not just pro Puerto Rican, because Puerto Rico, of course, is part of the United States. But when we in America say God bless America, we're referring to the United States. When he said it, it appeared to me that what he was doing is he then brought in all the countries of the Americas, as if to say the United States isn't America, this is America. Would that be an accurate interpretation on my part of what was going on?
I would say is one interpretation, yes, and I would say it's accurate. Giving the context that it's being, understood in, that deportations going on, Trump is attacked, like all of that stuff. So I would say yes, that's pretty accurate. I've seen a map on social media today that showed little, USA in the middle, and then Canada huge, and then South and Central America under it. So I would say yes, it's accurate.
So yesterday we had a guy in the chat basically who said I would be okay with anything as long anybody can share their ideas, but people that speak Spanish. The irony to me of that, one of my closest friends actually taught me a lot of Spanish, meaning you. If they put the lyrics on the screen slowly, I probably could have made a lot of them out. But once you get going with it, I can't make it out.
Yeah, but Michael, you know what I liked about that particular part of it? Well, it sort of harkens back to the stuff we've been talking about all along on the show, about individual rights being a universal concept applying to everybody, whereas the people on the right are saying, no, they just apply to citizens. A whole different set of rules applies to immigrants. So
I agree with that.
He was just bringing people under the umbrella of we're people, we're human beings. All of us are human beings.
No. Bad Bunny is not a big proponent of locking in individual rights.
He doesn't have to be a proponent of it. He doesn't have to be a conscious proponent of it. But
what?
That's the vibe.
Dude, you're going to make me crazy now.
No, he doesn't have to know he doesn't have to know specifically what he's saying to say it, right? That's just
what fact. In God's name does that mean? You're back for 10 minutes and I'm already dizzy. If the guy's not a proponent,
can do the right things and not know the reasons why they're doing them.
He
may be thumbing his nose at the administration, which I think is justified, and letting everybody know that we're all part of a human. We're all part of the human family.
Yeah, we are, but we're all part of the human family. Yes, but this is not a guy that's for individual rights. Not even close. He's a big supporter of the Marxist organization Black Lives Matter.
Is Mark saying that he's actually contradicting that by promoting what he did last night?
Sometimes it's hard to know what Mark is getting at, to be honest.
I don't know. I'm understanding that, because I know a lot of people that claim that they're not for capitalism, for individual rights, and then they end up taking positions that contradicts that very thing.
Right. Yeah. This guy's not promoting that stuff. And here's the thing. So I'm gonna let the people know a little secret. All right. I had all the preparation in the world to have this show with Mark. I had 15 or so years of practice in talking to Carlos, because Carlos does the same thing. Like what he just said. What does that even mean? Is he conscious of it? My point is he's not doing it on purpose. That's it.
So what? So he's doing it. It's all right.
I don't know what he's doing.
Philosophical work. So I interpreted what he said as a thumb in the eye of the administration, where he was standing up for people of color, particularly Latinos who have been deported just because they have brown skin. and saying that to me, the message was, and maybe I'm reading into it, that America is more than the color of your skin. It's an idea. Now, he may not buy that.
Yes.
He may not buy that. That may not be his thing. He may be a Marxist. All right, that's his thing. But I got something different from that message. I didn't get a Marxist message from it.
All right, Carlos, before I let you go, I have to know, do you find Bad Bunny to be a handsome man? Yes or no?
Beyond handsome, he's sexy. Although I wasn't fond of his hairstyle. I know a lot of barbers were upset for not getting his hair cut before the performance.
Carlos, thanks so much, man, for listening to it, for coming on the show
man.
to explain it. I love you, brother.
I'm heading to the circumlocution office to get my freaking permit for my.
We're gonna have you back on to talk about that. That will be great. Love you, buddy.
All right, guys. Have a great night.
See you, man. Peace.
All right, so
thanks,
we got,
Phil, for the 5-pound super sticker. Thank you so much.
Yes. Okay. So back to pivot back to the original discussion. That there was just not that was a quick opportunity there, but there's an article in Reason magazine where were 2 studies done about the harm that social media does to kids. One of those articles, one of the studies says that there's sort of the Goldilocks position where not enough social media is harmful, too much is harmful, but there's a place in the middle where it's okay. Then there was another study that actually said, no, there's no harm at all. And what the author of the article pointed out is, correlation's not causation. We don't know that, but the evidence is definitely what we conclude is that a moderate amount of social media use is not harmful. I just don't know. So in a lawsuit, and if Jim was here, he could explain this. You have the company has to have a duty. They have to breach the duty, and that breach has to cause harm, right? So I don't know that you could prove harm in this case. How would you even quantify it? So I'm really not a fan of this stuff either, Mark.
No. Yeah. I, particularly when, as you said, we don't know what her personality profile is going into this. In my view, social media will sort of enhance your character flaws and your strengths. I mean, if you have a strong sense of yourself, a strong personality, you have strong values, it's not really going to, I think, upset the apple cart too much. But if you have a fractured personality, your psychology has lots of holes in it, and you're vulnerable, you can fall prey to this stuff. But still, Michael, we have that floating element of free will. When is a person, in the end, responsible for all this stuff? Yeah, she conditioned herself probably at a very early age because her parents were probably absentee. And so she's conditioned herself to whatever sensations this social media gave her. And it's super hard to decondition yourself from that. Right. But Michael, people just don't understand. There's a price to pay for this stuff, right? If you eat bad food your entire life, you don't exercise, getting in shape is going to be fucking hard. It's going to be super uncomfortable until it's not. All right. And then you start turning your mind around and seeing that exercise is actually good. You start seeking that discomfort. So, Michael, I just feel like lawsuits like this just rob people of accountability. And that seems to be sort of popular.
And I think they do more than even that. Like in the case of medication or any product, when you put people at risk when they produce something that they're going to be sued, less people want to engage in that activity. And, we're such a litigious society that what ends up happening is we don't know, it's like the seen and the unseen. We don't know the dampening effect that this stuff has on production, on innovation, on creation. We could speculate, and I'm sure it's definitely more than zero. And that's not a good thing.
I feel like for some people, social media is the fentanyl, right? It's the fentanyl. They use it as a distraction. It's easier than going out there and putting feet to ground or focusing your mind on something. It's so much easier. Well, there's a price to pay for all that ease. There's a price to pay for the immediate fix that social media gives you. You have to start adjusting your consciousness to the idea that if you want to thrive, you have to be always looking for your long-term interests, which means giving up shit like that no matter how uncomfortable it is. I think, Michael, we live in I don't know if this is just a perennial problem with us humans, but we live in a day and age where that kind of strength and resoluteness is not admired anymore. It feels like people they get moral cachet, I guess, from being weak, and they look at you as somebody who wants to be durable and anti-fragile and strong, as if you're denying realities.
Yeah, it's it's often been referred to as the victim Olympics, and it's really not a good thing. And I want to pivot now because I think we've kind of exhausted this, but there's people in the audience that want to know what I meant about self-created reality. So if you could take us there with the Axios article. Yes.
Yeah, let me just read a little bit about this here.
Okay.
I'll read you straight from the Axios article, folks, because it is interesting and it'll pose some interesting thoughts for us objectivists. Your reality is formed from what you read, see, listen to, and experience. It's no longer mostly shaped by the news. So the people you follow, the videos you watch, the podcasts you hear, the news you read, all shape the world that you know. Okay, why it matters. It feels like you control this. You often don't.
Yeah, okay, so there's a few things. One, I agree. You don't want to get stuck in an echo chamber. And that
Right.
definitely happens. But there's a flip side to that I thought of when I'm reading it. If you deliberately disengage from all that stuff, then you are cut off from other stuff that's actually occurring. So when I read this Gunther Eagleman or Engelman, whatever his name is, or Glenn Beck, or all the stuff that I've seen today, I don't take that as a source of information. But what I do is take it as part of what's going on in the culture, right? Because you can't deny that. So I think that we do want to avoid echo chambers. We definitely want to be on guard. I mean, confirmation bias is real, where people deliberately seek out the information that they want to hear. But I mean, just think about like what I just had Carlos on. This is all over social media that Bad Bunny's saying these lyrics at the Super Bowl. He didn't. But they keep repeating it. And they do this so frequently. I mean, I don't know. Like, it's hard to know if MAGA, if the influencers are really convinced of this because they live in the bubble, or if they're deliberately making it up. I don't ultimately know. I just know that it's dangerous because it spreads rapidly. It was a similar with when Donald Trump last week posted the video of election fraud stuff, and embedded in it was the Obamas looking like apes, and then it reverted back to the election stuff. People keep saying to me, have you actually watched the whole video? It was a Lion King parody. No, it wasn't. There was a Lion King parody, of course. This was taken from that and embedded in another video. And but a guy this morning was all over my Facebook page telling people, I bet you didn't watch the video. And I'm like, dude, you didn't watch it. So why don't you now apologize? He said, oh, you obviously didn't. I said, no, I saw the Lion King parody. That's just not what Trump shared. And then, of course, it switches when the mental gymnastics come in. Yeah, but it was a assistant that shared it. But the bottom line is this idea, and no, you're not actually creating your own reality, but people do cultivate their own mindset, their own impressions, their own interpretations. And you do have to be on guard against this all the time. I don't know how we ended up in this position, Mark, where people just believe all this bullshit. Maybe, like you said, they always did. It just wasn't as, pronounced, but it's dangerous. At the same time, I ultimately think social media is a net benefit because of all the good stuff that comes out of this.
Yeah, for any advancement in technology, in this case, information like this, Michael, there's going to be two sides to it. There's going to be people who use it for bad and people who use it for good. There's a tremendous benefit to having all this information at our beck and call. But now that we have this abundance of information, that just puts it upon you to be more responsible with respect to how you look at this information, how you view it. You have to be more rational than you were before, more discerning than you were before. I mean, I'm guilty in the past, Michael, of just posting something or reposting something that I didn't look into, right? I don't do that anymore, but because it confirmed my bias, I just let it go and I passed that on. And then I became a participant in a chain, Michael, an anti-intellectual chain for a falsehood that's passed around the world and then gets taken as the truth. And I mean, I've been a victim of that kind of stuff. Look, we have a great deal of power.
Whoa, 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 whoa,
I've been a
whoa,
victim of it
whoa.
and also a perpetrator of this kind of stuff.
Oh, okay,
Of false
okay.
claims. Of false
Okay,
claims.
I thought you were saying you were a victim and that you reposted it. Okay, I
No.
misunderstood.
I understand from both sides of the issue how conscientious you should be when you're posting something, particularly when it might redound to the reputation against the reputation of the person you're posting it to. You have to treat somebody's reputation as the advertisement of their character, and it's important that you treat that with a little bit of sacredness, right? And people don't nowadays.
Yeah, there was a question this morning on Facebook. Somebody asked, who are the most credible journalists?" Somebody actually put Dave Smith, Lou Rockwell, Glenn Greenwald, and I'm just like, what?
Yeah.
What in God's name are you talking about? This, they're, these. I don't know if there's the left-wing equivalent of this, and I'm by no means saying that people on the left aren't liars. When I was, we used to watch them all the time in prison, the politicians especially constantly lying. But right now, the influencer sphere seems to be dominated by the right. Now, that might be a result of my own click history. I don't, maybe. But, they're all over saying how Bad Bunny, the Kid Rock show. Oh, what a great performance. It took from the NFL. It's putting the NFL out of business. The Bad Bunny show, which, by the way, I criticized yesterday, had 135 million
The
views.
most watched
Ever.
show in history.
Ever. Yeah, this Kid Rock thing didn't put a dent in it. The people
million?
that went and watched that likely weren't going to watch Bad Bunny anyway.
Right.
Right? So, I mean, you went and got basically a washed-up performer in his 50s to come out and lip sync, and yet you're putting it out there and sharing and sharing and sharing.
Did he lip sync?
Oh my God, it was one of the worst lip syncs you've ever seen. Literally, and this is not an exaggeration. He's singing, he puts the mic and starts flipping it, and the words, you could still hear them.
That's bad. Thank you, Kathy, for the $4.99 super sticker. Oh, that's so scary, dude. That is so scary. But look, Michael, I think the right has always dominated certain media, right? I felt like for years they dominated talk radio, and I came to the conclusion they did this because it's a listening medium, and they used to have a bit of a conceptual command over how things worked in the world, and it was a long form medium. Listening medium is deeper than the visual medium of television. So I thought, that sort of linked up with, conservatism's more intellectual side. Now, this is, 20, 30 years ago. Now, I think we have something similar with the podcast medium, the long form medium, where these people are talking about ideas and concepts. It's just been hijacked now by right-wing nationalism that poses as an intellectual movement, but it really isn't. So, look, I mean, I think the end of this, Michael, with this story is, the social media platforms probably use the algorithms to drive engagement. They drive engagement for people.
I don't understand this here. I don't know. This is from Ian Gilmore. He says almost all halftime shows are lip synced. Like, I don't know how that, one, justifies lip syncing, but two, it's not done that poorly. Right? I remember. Do you remember when Ashley Simpson was on Saturday Night Live years ago? And she totally lost what she was lip syncing. And she ended up it was absolutely ridiculous.
Didn't that ruin her? I mean, didn't that ruin her from that performance?
Here's the thing. Look, Kudadaba, did you see the video how few people in the stadium were interested in the Buddy performance? I don't know. I mean, I could see a video that I have no clue. I know it had 135 million views, right?
Yeah, I watched it. He's the biggest artist in the world at the moment, and that's whom they offer these halftime shows to. The biggest artists in the moment, not just some fringe, group of folks, white nationalists, as much as they want to take over the culture and make America there in the image of themselves.
But
That's
but
not
the
what's
point.
going on.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mark. I
No, no, go
apologize.
ahead. You go. You
Well,
go.
it's just that I like. Okay, Q to Baba. Okay, even if that's true, what does that have to do with the social media sphere, the MAGA sphere, blatantly lying about what this guy actually sang? And what does it have to do with them saying that this TPUSA thing basically put the NFL out of business, took away all the viewers, outperformed it? Because that's not true. So if you could show, yes, there was people in the audience not, not interested. Okay, fine, but that doesn't make their claims accurate.
Agreed. Agreed. So, Michael, do you want to go to the where is it? I'm looking for it.
Well, I want to just say one more thing about this topic. It is
Yeah.
ultimately to tie these two stories together. It is our responsibility to be critical thinkers, to assess our sources of information, to use reason, to correct, when we're wrong, to admit it, and like what we looked at also was how many people have a deficit in critical thinking. Even when they're smart in one area, can't use critical thinking in another. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And
Yeah.
it's just, it's not good. I have a question for Persephone and Race. They mentioned these two left wing influencers. I'm just curious because I've seen Hassan Piker. I don't agree with his politics. Do they blatantly make stuff up and post it to social media? They do, Persephone? Okay. I wouldn't be surprised.
Oh yeah, the American Communist Party did that, and
No, I'm not
and
talking about them bozos. I'm not talking about them. Those
they
guys don't
are
have
in,
influence.
they look at themselves as in competition with a guy like Hassan
But
Piker.
they can look at whatever they want to. I'm talking about people like Benny Johnson, Dave Smith. These people, some of them have millions of followers. Jack Posobiec, Glenn Beck. There's a whole lot of that stuff.
So Michael, we have a social media, there's multiple social media platforms, and we have people misusing it and spreading misinformation. So how do we combat that? As people from the outside or users of social media, how can we individually
Well,
combat the spread of misinformation?
well, we have to have a full commitment to truth, to reason as the source of knowing truth. And we have to be persistent and consistent in the application. In the article, it made if I can find it real quickly, it talked about the four components of communication. Do you remember what they were? The receiver. I don't remember exactly what it was now.
Is this on the spread of misinformation on social media?
Yeah, it was in the article. Behind the curtain, control your reality. I think. If it's not, it's not. It doesn't really matter. The point is that you and me need to, as they say, take ownership of our brains. Right? Don't let it be manipulated. Don't fall for bullshit just because it's what we want to hear or what we want to see. And we have to just really be critical thinkers in this. And like I said, when we're wrong, just say, "Oh yeah, I was wrong. It was my bad." But there's this thing right now, this idea that you never apologize and never admit you were wrong. I mean, they say this broadly. I mean, out in the open, never apologize, never apologize.
The worst thing in the world.
Yeah, I agree. It's really, really bad.
I mean, Rand said it best: check your premises. No matter how certain you think you are, it's a good idea to check in all the time to make sure that you are on the right path, that your concepts are in sync with reality. It's important that you do that. It's not going to just happen automatically, guys. It happens from constant checking in. But Michael, that's difficult, right? I mean, it requires a degree of self-consciousness, self-awareness that people necessarily aren't willing to invest. And so that's why I think philosophies like objectivism, which should be really, really, really taking the world by storm, don't, because they don't. It doesn't offer the magic pill. right? It's not a magical universe that objectivism invests in. It's a rational universe that requires a great deal of attentiveness on the part of the person who's walking through that universe, and people simply don't want to be that attentive because it's hard. Do you want to get onto the Save Act, or do you?
Yeah, I think I have to start following this Hassan Piker now so I can see what a BS artist he is. Yeah.
Yeah, apparently he's quite.
I mean, I don't like to reward those people, but they are part of the culture, and you have to know what they're out there saying if they're influencing people, and that's how you can combat it.
Well, it would be great if you could debate the guy.
I would, but Persephone's giving me a dirty look right now, and I don't, what am I supposed to do? He's such a dick, though. Yeah, I mean, if I'm gonna, I don't want to. No.
He's a bad guy. I mean,
I was just gonna say if I'm gonna stop following dicks, but I don't want to be. I don't want to be thought of as the guy following dicks. If he's such a jerk, right? But you still have to see what they're saying. It's out there.
Yeah. So then you come up with that. You're in that difficult dilemma where you need to see what's out there, but by the same token, you don't want to reward a person like this and give them more reach. Right. It's like you want to smother their dishonesty with engagement.
I get it. And if the guy had 30 followers, true. But me following a guy with 950 million views, like I'm not making that dent. He's got influence whether I'm watching or not.
It's astounding that people are so hungry for socialism right now, Michael, after all the damage it does and how easily provable it is that this damage is being done. It's astounding to me that people still hold this as an ideal for society.
Yeah.
So the Save Act, man, it's got Congress up in arms right now. Is that a good? Was that not? Was that?
I like the way you said it. No, it was nice. The Save Act, man.
1.6 million followers on X for Piker. What a jerk. Anyway, yeah. So this thing called the Save Act is not just a bill that requires ID at the booth. It goes a little bit deeper than that. Michael, you want to talk about
it doesn't require ID at the booth at all.
Right. It's not that. It's something else. Talk to us about what it is.
Well, the Save Act ultimately, they want you to prove citizenship when you enroll to vote. When you sign up to vote, you have to prove citizenship. I don't see an issue with that. I really don't. I don't.
Me neither.
Have a problem with it at all. I mean, conservatives or Republicans are largely idiotic on this. I don't have a problem. If that you go and you can prove that you're an American citizen and then you enroll. I mean, just signing, like, I guess the way they do it is you just sign and to verify that you're a citizen. But if you're not who you say you are, then what the hell difference does that mean? I just don't see an issue with this at all, Mark.
Well, let me call up the issues from the other side, which of course now Fetterman is turning out to be a pretty decent dude.
Okay, but don't conflate the two, because I have a feeling that we're headed toward confusing the Save Act with the ID issue. They're not the same, and I want to discuss both.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe I would. Maybe I was going to do that. Okay, so talk about the other thing.
Well, no, but tell us about Fetterman first, Mark.
Well, what I like about Fetterman is he, like you, doesn't see anything wrong with producing evidence that that you're a valid voter, that you have the right to vote in whatever state or jurisdiction you're in. To me, that seems commonsensical, but for many Democrats, it's busting into their concept of radical democracy, where everybody voting is a right to them, Michael. It's a right like the right to your life is. I don't consider it that. They seem to, however. And they also have issues with the voter ID issue, not just Save, where you have to prove your citizenship, but the production of an ID at the booth. Go ahead.
Well, we need to differentiate, because when you say voting is not a right, because it is a constitutional right. Right.
Okay.
So if somebody's just tuning in for the first time and hears you say it's not a right, like the right to life, they might be confused. Yes, it's in the Constitution. What you're saying, Mark, correct me if I'm wrong, is that it's not a natural right. It's not an individual right. It's not a pre-governmental right.
Correct.
Okay, so that's the main thing. Now, the to get to the ID thing, I looked into this morning. I've looked into it before. The vast majority of first world countries require some photo ID when you go to vote. We're one of the few that don't. It's not hard to get an ID in this country. It really isn't. I don't see the issue. I mean, if they want to make ID mandatory to vote, and then maybe modify the rules to where you can get an ID, or they just are going to provide you with one, I'm fine with that too. But I don't see. We'll get into, like you said, the two sides. But from my perspective, and we could go against the opposition on this. I don't see any of those claims as valid. Any of the arguments against voter ID, I see none of them as valid.
Yeah, same here. Let's get into some of these arguments against requiring voter ID. There's a risk of voter disenfranchisement. Do you think that's so?
No, I don't. I think that it's what they want to do ultimately is compare it to like intelligence tests, Jim Crow stuff. Yeah, right. Like the stuff that was used to preclude blacks from voting, that you made it so hard that the 15th Amendment was rendered inapplicable. So then they ultimately had to pass the Voting Rights Act. But no, it's not a difficult thing to do. As an adult in this country, if you are not responsible enough to be able to prove that you are a citizen, or to prove who you are, you probably shouldn't be voting anyway. Right? It's not a big thing. Now, I am not someone, like, I'm not adamant that there has to be ID. I just don't buy the arguments against it.
Indeed. Ian says the context that needs to be added is that a large swath of the U.S. once used every method they could to keep people from voting. Well, yeah. At one time, the majority of people could not vote.
Right. But that doesn't mean that everything then comes up that you don't like, you can claim this is an obstacle to voting. This is an obstacle to voting.
So also they claim there's a disproportionate impact, Mike. This seems like the soft racism of low expectations, as if people of color, that's who they say will be primarily impacted by this stuff, cannot get IDs when you need an ID to do pretty much everything in the United States.
Yeah. So
including traveling.
My friend Carlos that we just had on, after spending 24 years in prison, starting at 15, he's been out of prison for about 3 years, 5 months or so. And he talked today about how he's going, he has to go to the circumlocution office. He's dealing with building permits and all this stuff because he just opened up his own salon. He previously had his own business, but he was using somebody else's space. Now he's opening up his own salon. If Carlos, after 24 years in prison, being a minority, is able to not only get ID, but open up his own business that's successful, people can get IDs. It's not disenfranchising people. I don't buy that even a little bit.
I don't either. Minimal fraud address. So one of the things the Republicans say, the right wing that's predominantly in favor of this, is that this keeps the voter rolls clean. It enables people to link up real identities with the person, and so it will prevent fraud from happening. In this respect, Michael, they're sort of right in the sense that fraud is minimal in the system, and it may be, in fact, because a large swath of states do require an ID, to present some form of ID at some point in the electoral process.
So I think that that this may be a valid argument, and I don't know. I'm not embedded enough to know how much of what existing fraud is caused by this, but it wouldn't surprise me if that it's very minimal, and that this law is just not going to have the impact that Republicans think it's going to have, and that's a legitimate concern, right? You don't want to be passing unnecessary laws just to make yourselves feel good. And I'm also, what concerns me is the Republican obsession with this issue, because of how many of them actually believe, for instance, that the 2020 election was stolen. Don't you think that's driving their obsession though right now? Yeah, in large part, I do. And it's just not true. It's just not accurate. I had a guy the other day tell me on Facebook Messenger, we were talking, and I asked him, do you really believe that the election was stolen? And he says, probably, yeah. And he says, the reporter, Emerald Robinson. And I'm like, dude, Emerald Robinson is not a reporter. And this goes back to the misinformation stuff.
Who's that? I don't even know Emerald Robinson. Who is that?
She's a whack job. She once claimed something to the effect that the vaccines are loaded with Satan's blood or some weirdo stuff. Persephone, can you find out exactly what it was that Emerald Robinson claimed about Satan's blood and vaccines or whatever? But the point is, she's not a reporter. But to this guy, she is. And this goes to the first thing, the second story about the self-created reality. I mean, I get it if you don't want to trust mainstream media. I get it. But you're not a skeptic if you're trusting Emerald Robinson. He then said, no, he doesn't trust her. He trusts his friend that's working, whatever. But the point is, the 2020 election was not stolen. Trump's own cabinet members, I'll put that up in a second, Persephone. Thank you. Trump's own, his attorney general said no. Conservative judges dismissed it. They're, lost, not stolen by so many jurists said no. But they keep believing it because he keeps promoting it. Now, furthermore, just start from scratch, right? From the beginning, we have Donald Trump. Steve Bannon, before the election even takes place, says Trump's going to claim it was stolen if he loses, even though, of course, it's not. So we know that. We also know that Trump, every time he loses anything, says it's rigged. So you're natural when you come into this thing, your frame of mind should be skeptical, to say the least. And then when you've got people like this.
Dear Christians, the vaccines contain a bioluminescent marker called luciferase. Oh my God. Come on.
Right now, let me just tell you, when I first said she's not a reporter, I didn't even know that. I didn't know her history, anything. All I knew was how many times I've caught her lying on social media.
Oh, Lord have mercy.
Right. So if somebody's going to refer to her as a reporter, I mean, I don't know what you're just not living in reality. And so that does concern me that, these voter ID laws are being suggested and argued from people who believe stuff like that is a concern for me. But I still, especially what I think is that it would be such a win for Democrats, I think, to just say, okay, we'll pass it. Right. And then you can move on and you don't have to keep arguing about it because I don't think it's going to cause harm.
Unfortunately, they won't, Michael.
Do you have this luciferase, Mark? Did they inject you with that so you could perform on Supernatural?
I plead the fifth, my friend. So the final argument we already discussed, but we could talk about a little more. Voting is a fundamental right. Now, we both...
See, there I disagree. It's not a fundamental right. It just isn't. It's a fundamental right. There's one, really, it's the right to life, and all the rest of rights are derivative from that. But it's a political right, right? It's a political right that's established within a system that determines things like you have to be 18 to vote, or you have to be 21 to vote, or voting takes place on this day, and this is the type of system that we're going to have. It's certainly a constitutional right, but it's not a fundamental right. And given that it's a constitutional right, it can be limited. I mean, convicted felons don't get to vote. Not everywhere. I guess in some places they're restoring that, maybe even in Connecticut. I just don't care enough to vote because there's, if we get Mark Pellegrino on the ballot, no, if you're on the ballot, I'll go vote. But it'd be odd if you were running in Connecticut. But it's just it's not a fundamental right. And that I once had somebody tell me it's the most important right. No, I'm sorry, it's just not the most important right. Not even close.
Yeah, Michael,
the only reason, Mark, the only reason it's even important is because we allow politicians to get away with murder. But that, in large part, is a result of the people who vote.
Yeah,
they're the ones voting
for
it.
It's important because we've endowed the political class with a great deal of power over our lives, so that now when you elect an official in your district or go to national elections, even with the president, you're electing somebody who has the power of life or death over some of the jobs that you take, over the industries that you have. This is a ridiculous amount of power. In a free society, a capitalist society, the politicians are just people who change chairs, and they have a fiduciary responsibility to the people, and they don't take your rights away. So it really would be irrelevant whether you voted or not. And Michael, there's tons of communities in America who are not politically connected, but nonetheless thriving. So it's not like voting is a requirement for your thriving, for your economic or spiritual well-being, although it's become more important now because of how much power the American people have ceded to the political class. Here are the arguments for, Michael. There's 4 arguments for. I want to see what your impressions are of this. Election integrity and confidence. These are the arguments for voter ID. Do you think this has any merit?
I don't know whether it will increase confidence. Again, if people are willing to believe the stuff that they're willing to believe about election fraud, I don't know how it increases confidence, because the next scandal is going to be how Democrats are sending fake IDs to their supporters.
Sure.
Right? To the people that they want to vote. When people are hell bent on believing BS, they're going to believe BS. And it doesn't matter. So, no, I don't think that it will restore confidence. Will it make elections more secure? I don't know. I'm skeptical, but maybe.
Common sense standard. Showing ID is required in many everyday activities. So why shouldn't it be engaged in?
Yeah, I think that's a fair argument. I mean, you got to carry a license to drive. Now, we can make an argument maybe you shouldn't have to, but nonetheless.
There was a time when that wasn't necessary. There was a time when farm boys were driving on their property at 12 years of age and everything was fine. So you're right. I mean, again, with respect to IDs, there's good and bad with respect to those, but consistency with other democracies, this is a weak argument to me, Michael. Do you find it weak?
Say that again?
One of the arguments for voter ID is consistency with other democracies, since the majority of democracies.
No, I don't. Yeah, I don't care. I never liked when the left made those arguments like they do about universal health care, for instance. Mm-hmm. Other countries do it. I don't care. We're America. America's supposed to be better. So no, but I do think it's relevant to the sense if you're saying, look, this is obviously a racist thing or this is obviously a harmful thing, to point out, well, all these other countries are doing it, and it doesn't seem to be causing the problems that you're talking about. That, I think, is a fair point.
Okay. Clear and uniform rule. A simple ID requirement can be easier for poll workers to administer than subjective verification methods.
It sounds like it makes sense, but I would have to ask a poll worker to really know. I don't know how hard it is for them to verify things as it is, so I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still for the states making their own rules with respect to that, and not for the federal government to come in and make them quote unquote uniform.
Right.
I mean, the states are co-equal powers, and they have the constitutional right to exercise their authority in this realm, and they should. Right. So some states don't require voter ID. The majority do, but some don't, and that's why we have a federalist system. If you don't like the way your state's operating, if you have the means, go to the state that's doing what you like or closely approximating what you like. Michael, is there anything else you wanted to talk about? Am I missing anything here?
No.
So should I do the capitalist thought for the day?
Well, I do want to ask you though. Are you going to be here for the week? How long?
I will be here for the week. I leave on Sunday. Until the 18th, and then I come back for a couple of days, and then I leave for a convention in Pensacola, and then go straight from Pensacola to Toronto for about 3 or 4 more days, and then I should be done with Block 4 of Vought Rising, and then we do some reshoots for about a week. So I'll be back. I'll be back in a sporadic way next week, but I'll be here for the whole week this week.
Yeah, Persephone, you should see the look she's giving you right now. She's not happy with that at all.
Well, wait till she gets my cameo.
Oh no! All right. I guess we give the capitalist thought of the day, but we got 5 minutes left. If you want to shoot the proverbial whatever it is, maybe we can harness a topic for the last couple minutes. What do you think?
Yeah, whatever you want, man. Hey, I want to talk about Fetterman for a second, because Fetterman.
There you go. Sure.
So Fetterman, when I was in Pennsylvania, I was in Pittsburgh working, by the way, when he got elected, and it was such a crazy election because he had a massive stroke, and he couldn't debate anybody, he couldn't even really speak, and yet he got elected, which I found amusing and tragic and strange, all at the same time. And I thought, this is crazy. This shows the Democratic machine's corruption. And this guy was a sort of an avowed Marxist. And I actually worked in the town that he was the mayor of. And it is a town. It was the poster boy for Buell, Pennsylvania, which was the fictional town that we lived in. So it was a town that was dead, like literally dying. You could buy, Michael, a church that had been abandoned there for like $25 and refurbish it. That's how dead it was in this town that he was the mayor of. So I thought, this guy is a political disaster waiting to happen. He can't even articulate, he can't even have a simple conversation with somebody. We're doomed. He's turned out to be one of the most commonsensical guys so far.
Remember how adamant they were against him, the conservatives, the Republicans? He was slow. He can't make it. He's brain damaged. Now they kind of love him. But I think it needs to be recalled that he ran against Dr. Oz.
He did. And was Dr. Oz a favorite of the MAGA movement? He was sort of in that. Right?
I guess. I don't know. They whatever. They seem to associate fringe with being anti-establishment.
Right.
And you could, most nuts are anti-establishment. Not that Oz is. I'm just saying. But most crazy people are not part of the establishment. That doesn't make them good.
Well, I just want to say, give a shout out to Fetterman, because I think he's taken the common sense line on almost every issue that I've seen him make a public pronouncement on. So that just shows a guy who's, I don't know how deep his socialism goes, but I do know that the things he's decided to make public, he has a very commonsensical and non-ideological approach. He's more interested in the truth than he is in pleasing his party, and that, is a standout phenomenon in a day and age of tribalism. This guy's standing out and being independent of his party. That's a pretty powerful thing, because it's hard to be independent in a tribal world, Michael.
Yes.
So shout out, kudos to Fetterman. Anyway, man, do I give the capitalist thought of the day because I have been absent for so long?
Dude, you owe like 15 capitalist thoughts of the day.
Do I? All right. So one of the things we talked about today, folks, was social media and how it seems to be trapping people with algorithms. And there's a case before a California court right now that is about suing the social media companies and holding them accountable for an addiction. Look, a capitalist society is a society that believes in individual rights and reason and free will and choice in all human action. Yes, you may find it difficult to disconnect from a habit. You may find that a hard thing. But in the capitalist society, your life is your responsibility ultimately. You have to be tuned in to what you want and what you need and what your long-term goals are, so that you can make choices appropriate to fulfilling those things in the long term. Not to say that addictions wouldn't exist in a capitalist society, but you would certainly understand that whether or not you kick that addiction is your responsibility, because capitalism is about full and complete and unfettered choice in all human action. Go ahead, Michael.
My question is, I want it to be a learning experience for me. So please go to YouTube and answer the question. Are left-wing influencers as prominent and dishonest as right-wing influencers? And if so, give me a list so that I know who they are and I can look them up. And that's it.
That's good. All right, folks, remember to like and subscribe to this channel before you leave. Remember to answer that question on YouTube. We're going to be here tomorrow, same bat time, same bat channel, 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 p.m. Eastern time. In the meantime, guys, that gives you 23 hours to check your premises. If you got statism and you get it out, it's bad. It's like Lucifer possessing you, and you want to exorcise that demon as soon as possible. Until that time, folks, peace.